Ladies and gentlemen, Jeff Wilson here on Coaches, Fighters, and Fathers with AJ Scales. AJ, my friend, how are you?
What's up, Jeff?
Man, I've been thinking about you a lot the last little bit. And last time we hung out was MFC1 in Saskatoon, a sellout event. And just before that, I think you won the Worlds. Then you went to Chicago for an invitational and won that. Then you had a super fight in Arizona, just a couple days ago, and you won that. What are you gonna win next? Like, is there any what's happening, man? You're having this incredible couple of months, man.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I've been at this for a while, dude, and so over the years, I found that I sacrificed a lot for my own journey to help other people, and I'm just now after I've been involved in it 20 years, and then this last decade I've been running a gym and coaching and doing all that stuff and promoting the sport and MMA and Jiu-Jitsu, and I'm just now finding time to really get at it and look do some things for myself. So competing has been always a passion, and I've always done it. So now I feel that my jiu-jitsu has matured so much now that I've been competing at a high level, and all my training and all the work that I put in over the years is starting to pay off.
It's rare, man. It's really rare to see a guy like yourself who was doing MMA and fighting, and then you really went into your club and your students, built those guys up, got some pro fighters out of there, and then to see someone go back like you've done and just start winning stuff. It's talk to me a little bit about that change and why you decided to do it, because a lot of people, I don't think, in your position where you're at right now would decide to do as many events and go and compete as much as you are. What's driving that?
You know what? It's passion, man. Like I said, I put myself on pause for the last decade, I feel. And right now is my time, like I feel like right now I feel healthy. I'm always training with my students and things like that. So I'm always going to throw my name in the hat and see what happens. I'm curious. I want to see what's going on. Let's see if my jiu-jitsu is up to par with whatever else is going on out there. You know what I mean? So throw my hat out there, my name in there, and it's turning out that my jiu-jitsu is right on par with everybody else's. So.
Yeah, I love that, man, and it's great. We probably digressed a little bit, but talk to me a little bit about your journey into martial arts and into jiu-jitsu and MMA.
I started martial arts when I was 15, 16. My dad took me kickboxing. I was living like 45 minutes out of Regina at the time, and I was traveling back and forth a few times a week. And I think I trained kickboxing with one of my dad's friends by the name of Dennis Matheson. He was one of my dad's coworkers out at the Paul Dojak Center, formerly called the Boys School. And they were some of the old school guys that worked out there. And, Dennis was taking on students just selectively. And he agreed with my dad that he'd take me on as a student. And he was teaching out of a basement. And so I started training with him. I was driving, so I had to have been 16. But, I remember my dad let me drive when, I just had a learner's license. So I could have been 15 also. So 15, 16. Trained with Dennis for about a year. And then, things, I was a teenager, I wanted to do a little bit of partying and all that kind of stuff. So I got involved in that. And then, the UFC came into, 93? 93. So I would have been grade 11, grade 12, started watching that, started doing some stuff with Troy, one of my best friends, he was a wrestler. So we were just, watching videos and mimicking the stuff that we were seeing on the UFC. and the stuff that we were seeing in magazines. And, after a while, I found a guy, started training with him, went to blue belt, and it just kept going from there, man.
Hey, AJ, let me ask you a question because I worked at the Paul Dojak Youth Center. I've worked with Dennis before. I love that guy. And I never knew Lamar, your dad, to be out there. I knew Ozzy, which I think you and I both know too. But it sounds like your dad was kind of like, hey, AJ's at that age where he may be picking a path that leads him down somewhere where you might be at the Paul Dojak Youth Center instead of training with him. Was he concerned about that? Or was there anything, were you growing up or no?
No, he wasn't concerned about that, man. My dad was also a martial artist. He was in the military and things like that, and they did a lot of martial arts and things like that. And my dad was a big Bruce Lee fan. Every Sunday we'd watch Kung Fu theater together, and we used to have like one of those big old school satellite dishes, and I'd have to go outside and move the dish, and then my dad would whistle at me until he'd tell me to stop until we found like that one spot where we can get a good reception of Kung Fu theater. And then all Sunday we just sit there and watch old Kung Fu movies, man. So it wasn't that. He just knew that martial arts was something that I guess his son needed. It's like everybody, like, even right now, I believe that everyone should put their kid in martial arts because it's one of those things. It's an individual sport. It's one of those things that I believe kids need nowadays, and especially the millennials, man, because millennials are like, from what I've seen and what I've experienced with that age group. It's really funny because what did they say? Millennials are in that, mid 80s, late 80s, early 90s. Millennials are right.
Yeah. They lived in the world of technology, whereas we really didn't have it, right? So they've got everything at their fingertips.
Exactly, man. Exactly. And it's kind of funny. It's kind of funny that, that's only like, it's only like maybe 10 years off of, when I was born. But, I feel like those millennials, like you said, they were just handed everything. My dad, if I ever asked my dad for something, he's like, well, how are you going to get it? Like he goes, you're going to have to make some sacrifices. And, my dad was like a small business owner, made me work inside the business when I was super young. So I learned, man, like nothing was handed to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you, and I agree. I agree with that as well. One of the guys that you have in your club is a real interesting, transformative story in Alville, and I want to talk because you were talking about how martial arts is a positive influence in kids' lives. Are you open to talking a little bit about his journey?
You know what? Maybe one day we could have Alvo on here and he could tell you, we could share together. Maybe I may not know it all. Like I could probably give you some tidbits of when I first met Alvo. Like Alvo's been training with me for like 8 years. He's like, I think he's got like three stripes on his purple belt. On minimal, the guy has been training anywhere from 2 to 3 times a week for those last 8 years. And, I've seen a huge transformation in this guy. But to get into the detail of the transformation, I think he would be the best guy to tell the story. Yeah. Because you know what, he's so passionate about it. He's so passionate about the transformation he made, and looking back at when before he started jiu-jitsu into where he is at now. The friendships he made, the lifetime friendships he made, the physical transformation, just everything, the social transformation, everything. So I think Avil's the guy, man, to tell you that.
Yeah, and we can definitely do that, AJ. But let's talk at a high level then. What do you see in terms of character traits or things that start to develop that normally don't develop in kids or millennials that start to train that's needed in today's world, do you think?
Well, I think it's responsibility at a different level. It's It's taking responsibility, taking ownership of, you know, themselves, right? And that comes along with that individual sport aspect of jiu-jitsu. So, you know, I always explain it, you know, as simple as I can, is that, you know, you put your kid in a team sport, and, you know, let's say it's hockey. You know, they lose the hockey game. But, you know, you say to Johnny, well, why did you guys lose? Well, because Jeff, the goalie, let in all the goals. Or the defenseman, you know, Kelly didn't defend, you know, his side of the ice. So a lot of times kids can just point the finger at other people and blame other people for their losses, right? In jiu-jitsu, I feel that, you know, the coach will give that athlete a set of skills to go in there and win, and it's up to that athlete to go and use them. So the only person they can really blame is themselves, and that's it. And there's a drive and a motivation for the next time that they go to a tournament to work harder, to train harder, and not, they can't blame anybody. They simply cannot blame anybody. You hear things, well, I can blame the coach. The coach didn't teach me, enough techniques. No, I don't believe that. That's not an excuse.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. You know what, man? And I remember when you said, take a look at Jocko Willink, I think is his name, the
yeah,
Navy SEAL that
yeah,
wrote the book Extreme Ownership, and how taking ownership of everything that's happening to you and around you, and even more, um, does something really powerful to you as a person, instead of always pointing the finger or trying to find blame somewhere else. And I appreciate you sending me that TED Talk, and I listen to it every couple of weeks, because it really sets your mind right. And yeah, as a jiu-jitsu competitor, you're right. You're the only guy there, and you win or lose based on your performance, and it's you, right?
yeah, exactly. So that's why I feel that it's so important that, parents put their kids in martial arts, man, in martial arts, and they can get a taste of the individual sport. You know what I mean? There's not too many, individual sports out there. Sure, there's like, there's swimming, there's, diving and all that kind of stuff that's competitive and stuff. But, I feel that martial arts is a life skill. I feel that martial arts has evolved so much that we're just not teaching kids how to fight or how to defend themselves. We're teaching them social skills. We're teaching them how to react and how to act with other people. We're teaching them to be stand-up people, have give people respect and, all that kind of stuff, right? So it's not just, the physical attributes that we're trying to teach these kids. It's a life skill. It's going to go with them the rest of their lives. You know what I mean?
I love that description, AJ, because we often talk about the BJJ lifestyle and sort of the style of how that happens. But if you change it, like you just did, to life skill, it immediately has value, and value at a global level, which is awesome. It's great to hear that. I like that life skill versus lifestyle, and moving forward that way. How is your training or your coaching changed over time?
Well, you got to remember, especially the way that jiu-jitsu came about, right? Like, the Gracies used the UFC to launch Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And the way that they used to do it was through challenge matches, right? They used to allow anybody to come into their gyms, and they would have a challenge. And they would be able to, say that, okay, they'd basically have fights, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And that was their way of promoting jiu-jitsu. But I feel that mentality of promoting the sport in that manner went on too long. It just went on too long, because what ended up happening was, jiu-jitsu started getting a perception that, oh, these guys don't go train there because these guys just, they just beat you up, and, everybody has a bad attitude, and, you never learn anything. You're going to get injured because no one respects you. Back in the day, white belts were doing heel hooks and leg locks and crazy stuff, and, choking guys unconscious. And, you had instructors that didn't have that had such a high level of insecurity also, that were, choking out their own students. You know what I mean? And I think that mentality and that way of marketing the sport went on way too long, way too long. I think once jiu-jitsu hit, the world through UFC, they should have immediately changed the marketing of jiu-jitsu in a different way. Because it's like, to this day, it's still hard to market it, right? It's still hard to market it because
Yeah, I agree 100% with you. And the reason is that jiu-jitsu gave me the opportunity to end a fight in the most gentle way possible, right? People sound like a chokeout's this terrible thing. And not really. If you're in danger, and instead of getting in a real fight and close off the carotid arteries and put someone out, then that's usually the end of the fight with the least amount of damage ever. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you got to remember, all these years that, I started, teaching and coaching, I was also marketing the sport and trying to change the perception of what was jiu-jitsu, because Brazilian jiu-jitsu was associated with the UFC. And then jiu-jitsu, the guys that were practicing jiu-jitsu thought that they were, MMA fighters, right? And that anybody came through the door, they had to show that, hey, jiu-jitsu is the most superior martial art out there. So the coach would say, okay, there's a wrestler coming to the gym tonight, and it just so happened the wrestler wanted to learn jiu-jitsu, but the coach was like, no, you're going to teach this wrestler that jiu-jitsu is the best.
it happened to me.
You know what I mean? It happened how many times, right? So guess what? That jiu-jitsu guy ended up, choking the wrestler unconscious or whatever. And there goes the student. There goes a student that already had, probably some great grappling skills that would have made everybody better, could have probably taught some interesting moves, and would have evolved jiu-jitsu and the athletes in that gym. But, again, like I said, the marketing style of jiu-jitsu, it was wrong for too many years, man. You know what I mean?
You think it's changed now?
Oh yeah, it's changed. There's still like, it's still a little bit, there's still a little bit of a gray area, but you know what? We've come a long ways. We have like kids competing. We have like the IBJJF has the Pan Kids, where there's like 3,000 kids at one tournament, and I have like tournaments just for kids. Like over 100 kids are competing in just a local tournament. Parents are realizing, yes, this is a safe sport. Every time I see one of my kids that doesn't come to class, or he comes to class with a black eye or scraped face, scraped legs, I'm like, what happened, man? Because I know it didn't happen here, right?
Mm.
Oh, they're like, oh, he fell off the monkey bars, he got hit in the head with a ball. You know what I mean? It's the kids are always getting hurt outside of the gym. And we can train safely and all of that. The parents realize that. We have a lot of competent instructors that are overseeing the training, and it's very rare that any of our kids ever get hurt inside.
Yeah, talk to me about the difference about when you're dealing with kids who are competing, who may be a little bit more emotional. Like, do you have a different style with kids, and maybe in how they deal with winning and losing?
um so number one, like emotional kids, I don't like, it's kind of funny. I may coach the way that I was parented, maybe. It's kind of weird. My dad didn't tolerate crying, man. Come on. There'd be times my dad would whoop out the belt, and I'd be like crying even before it happened. He'd be like, why are you crying? I'm like, so I know when the kids are hurt, right? And
Yeah.
so right away, it's a big show, and I don't tolerate that. I'm like, I tell the kids, listen, you cry in my class, I'm calling 911 because that means that something is broken and you have to go to the hospital. That's it. Period. So if you cry, you better get ready because I'm calling 911. That's it, right? So I also want to, and the reason for that tactic, I guess, or that method is that, especially for the kids that are getting bullied, I don't want kids to just lay down in the playground and cry and thinking that, the bully is going to stop right there. The crying is not going to protect them from the bully, and they got to stand strong and be able to defend themselves without, just emotionally breaking down because a bully is, bullying them. So, when my kids cry, I make sure that they're really not injured, but if they're crying, I don't tolerate crying. My kids know that. You ask my kids, you come in my gym, you ask my kids, does Coach AJ like crying? And they're going to tell you no. Are you allowed to cry in his class? No, you're not allowed. So, that's just the way it is.
Yeah, I think that's right. You probably coach a little bit like how you were raised. And I mean, I always love this story about once in a while a parent will come in and be very concerned about their kid and start telling you all the things about them. And you'll be like, yeah, no problem. We got it. And then they'll keep telling you problems and you'll be like, yeah, no, we got it. And then they'll keep telling you problems and you'll be like, the pack will take care of itself. And this interesting, style where you let the alpha males of the pack at the end of the class exhaust the guys that might be not listening as much through sparring and rolling around. And I thought that was really interesting. And then to have the results that you do where they stop messing around, right?
Well, it's like you're just saying, like a parent will tell me, well, my kid is very, quiet. He's very shy. He's antisocial. He doesn't do well in groups and all this stuff. And, over the years, 7, 8 years of teaching kids, I've heard it all. But the group is such an intimate group. You got to remember that. It's very hands-on with one another. They're touching each other a lot and they have to interact with each other physically. So a lot of the things that the parents are telling me, I'm like, listen, this group of people or these group of kids that are been doing this already for a while, they don't see his insecurities. They don't see that he may just be standing there because he's too afraid to come and interact with these kids. The kids are just going to go and grab him.
Yeah.
And they're drag him in the middle and they're going to put him on the mat and they're going to mount him and they're going to do things thinking like, hey, this kid must know stuff too. Until I say, well, hey, it's Johnny's first day. Relax. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they'll be like, oh, okay. Once they realize that it's his first day, you'll find that 5 and 6-year-olds will start to teach the other new kid certain things. They're like, oh, this is the bomb sweep. Oh, this is side control. Oh, this is the jiu-jitsu get up. You know what I mean? And you have 5 and 6-year-olds already starting to teach jiu-jitsu because of what they know, right? So the other kids are just, they're gonna mimic and they're gonna copy other kids. So in a social, group setting, you could put like, a really bad kid with a bunch of good kids, and what's the bad kid gonna do? He's gonna be a good kid. He's gonna see all the other kids being good,
Yeah.
after time. You put a really good kid in with a whole bunch of bad kids. Guess what's going to happen?
The opposite.
The good kid's going to do some bad things eventually.
Yeah.
Right? He's going to resist as much as he can, but eventually it's going to be something bad's going to happen. So that's the power of the pack, the mat.
The power of the pack and the mat. Yeah, I love it. Hey, one of the questions that I ask a lot of people on this podcast is about growing up and experiences that they had. And I was wondering, what is one of the best lessons that your dad or your mom, one of your parents taught you that sort of stays with you today that was like, that was a moment that helped shape me? Do you have anything like that?
I like to think, not only am I a martial artist, I like to think of myself as an entrepreneur. you know, with all the things that I've done with, you know, promoting MMA, promoting Jiu-Jitsu, running a gym, running a nonprofit, you know,
Yeah,
all.
14. Let's talk about that. What 14 events which I've been at to commentate with you. Probably what, over 30 grappling events as well over the time. Like,
Yeah,
you do a
maybe.
ton of stuff. Like, and I love the way your mentality is around it, because not everything's going to make money, and that's not necessarily the way to success. You're about vision and driving the sport forward. But talk to me a little bit about the experience of entrepreneurship and how that started.
Well, yeah. So, you know, like I said, my parents owned small businesses as I was growing up, and you know, I worked at the, like my dad and mom used to run a small grocery store slash gas station, and you know, at like 10 years old, I was working there, um, and I remember like this one time I was like, you know, Dad, I want to learn how to play the bass. You know, I want a bass. I want to, you know, my buddies were all playing guitars and drums and shit like that. So I was like, you know, I'm going to be the bass player. And so I need a bass. My dad's like, oh, yeah? He's like, okay, cool. How are you going to get a bass? Because I'm not buying you one. I was like, okay, well, I guess I don't know. He goes, well, you could probably sell one of those horses of yours that you have. Like I used to have horses and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And so then my dad was like, yeah, you can sell one of those horses, but I'm not taking it to the, I'm not going to take you to the auction. I'm not going to do anything for you. So he bought me the horse, and I can't remember. I think he paid like, I remember him saying, I remember him saying, you better come home with my money. That's what my dad told me. So I think he paid like $250 for this horse. So he's like, so I had to, no matter what I did, I had to come home with this $250. So I was like, how old would have I been? Like maybe 14 or 15, maybe younger than that, 13, 14. I had to have been about 13 or 14 years old. So I was like, okay, cool. So I will arrange for my neighbor to drive, like, you know, get a horse trailer, get a truck, get him to haul the horse all the way to Regina to the horse auction just outside of Regina, all that stuff, right? So I arrange all this stuff. And the way that it works at the auction is you take your animal in, and there's like a little half, you know, circle, and you walk them through, and it's bleachers, and people are bidding
Before
on
we
the
get
horse.
to that, the neighbor, did you say you'd give him a cut of the horse's sale, or why did he decide to agree with?
No, I paid for the gas. I paid for all the fuel and everything for them to get there and stuff like
Okay.
that. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna sell this horse. So I get, you know, the neighbor to do it and everything, and he takes me, and so I take this horse, and you know, at that time I was like really good with animals, so I jump on this horse, and you know, I'm only got a rope on its halter, and I'm neck reining it, and I'm going under its legs, I'm standing on its back, and man, I have people bidding on this horse like crazy, man. So I end up selling the horse for like $800.
Nice.
And so I come home, and my dad's like, so how did you do? And I showed him the check. It was like 800 and some bucks. Man, my dad flipped out. He couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe it, man. So I had to give him the 200 some bucks. And then I was able to go and take the rest of the money. I bought a bass and a bass amp. Went to my buddies and realized I couldn't play the fucking bass. So didn't even learn how to play the bass. Didn't, like, you know, didn't join the band, didn't do anything, man. But the lesson that I learned was that, you know, I wasn't going to get handed anything. You know what I mean? I had to figure it all out on my own and figure out how to make the money and all that for what I wanted. And, you know, I think that was a really good life lesson that my dad taught me. You know what I mean? Because he was like, you know, I think that my dad gave me anything that I wanted, you know, growing up. You know, he provided and everything like that. But, you know, it was just this one time he's like, no, no, no. I'm not buying you a guitar, or I'm not buying you a bass. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's like, you want one, you got to figure it out for yourself. So
I love that story, my friend, and I really appreciate you taking the time here today. Just give us a little bit of a rundown on if anybody in the Regina area wants to come train with you, where the school is at, the website, and all that, and then we'll close her up.
yeah, check us out, completemma.ca. All the information is there. AJ Scales 1 on Instagram. I don't know, man. Google me.
Yeah.
You'll find me.
Cool, brother. Thanks so much for taking the time. Look forward to talking to you soon.
Yeah.